G'day and welcome to another episode of Kiwi Car Life, and today we're going to slice the flim flam and cut right to the chase and tell you which is the best out of the latest Honda Jazz Life, the Suzuki Swift RS or the Mazda 2 GSX. Exterior styling is obviously highly subjective, but I think most would probably agree with me that the Swift looks the best. The Mazda 2, even though it's looking a little bit old, you know, Mazda's design has always been very classic, and just the fact that these two cars have a slightly longer bonnet makes them look a little less egg-like. Whereas the Jazz, I don't think it's a bad looking car, but I know there are quite a lot of people out there who don't like the look of this because of its egg-like proportions. In terms of exterior features, the Honda is definitely the standout winner. All of these cars have alloy wheels and keyless entry, but the Honda has front and rear parking sensors compared to these two having just the rear, and it has full LED lights all round. Boot space undoubtedly goes to the Honda. It has the biggest hatch space, and as an added bonus, the back seats can fold down completely flat and can also flip up at the base, whereas in both the Mazda and the Suzuki they have much smaller hatch spaces and the seats don't fold down completely flat. Back seat space undoubtedly goes to the Honda as well. The Swift is actually surprisingly not far behind. There's a decent amount of space back here, but the Mazda 2 is very cramped. The interior of the new Jazz is a masterpiece for build quality. The way everything fits together on the inside of here is simply sublime. The Mazda is a close second. Even though it's an older car, everything fits together really nicely, and what I love about it is that it has a nice cohesive experience, just like the Honda. The Swift, on the other hand, you can tell it's a cheaper car. The dashboard is really scratchy, there's a lot of crappy shiny plastic all over the dash, and it just doesn't look quite as well finished as it does in the Honda and the Mazda. In terms of seat comfort, the Honda is absolutely fantastic. The new seats in that Jazz are amazingly good. For some reason, I find in both the Swift and this Mazda, I'm not able to get a great driving position. Either my legs are too close or my hands are too far away. And the seats themselves are just not as nice as the ones in the Jazz. Interior storage also goes to the Honda. It's got two glove boxes, which is great for knickknacks. You've got two cup holders up here on the dash in front of the air vents, so you can blow hot or cold air on your drink, which is just genius. You've got a perfect spot down here right in front of the USB ports where you want it for your phone, and you've got a big center storage bin with a well-placed, comfortable, padded armrest on it, which is just perfection. You jump in the Swift, the armrest is really hard, doesn't have a lot of room in it, and there's only like a couple of cup holders in it, not 6 like in the case of this car. And the Mazda doesn't even have a center storage bin or a place to put your phone, so the Mazda is probably the worst for places to put things in the interior. And the infotainment system also goes to the Honda. It literally feels like a phone to use. It has beautiful graphics, wireless Apple CarPlay, and quick menu structures down the bottom here so that you can access all the things that you want to use. Now the one in the Mazda is also great, links in really well with the car, and you have the added bonus of a rotary knob down the bottom, so you don't have to use the touchscreen. If you don't want it, you can just sort of fiddle around down here while looking at the road, which is an added bonus. And the one in the Suzuki, yes, it has the features, but it looks terrible and kind of as an older generation touchscreen, which is nowhere near as responsive as the one in either the Mazda or the Honda. In terms of gauges, I'm gonna give the victory to the Honda purely on the fact that it has way more information that it can show in the center. But in terms of appearance, the Suzuki looks absolutely fantastic. It reminds me in a lot of ways of the Alfa Romeo gauges, with the way the needles sit right at the bottom and have the sort of red outlines. It looks really, really cool. I do like the way it looks in the Mazda, although those two dot matrix displays on the side kind of date it a little bit, and I think the one in the Mazda 3 and the MX-5 looks a bit better with the proper needles for both gauges rather than the little fake screens off to the side. Active safety features undoubtedly goes to the Swift. The Jazz, at least in that spec, doesn't have anything. The Mazda only has blind spot monitoring and rear cross traffic alert, but the Swift has adaptive cruise, forward collision warning, and road departure warning. Now, I'm just going to make that clear that these are purely warnings. In the case of the upper spec Jazz, it is mitigation, and you need to look for those words when you are choosing these cars. Mitigation means that it will actively take over the braking and steering if it thinks you're going to run off the road. In the case of this, it just beeps and nothing more, and it drives you insane. It is the biggest waste of time, and people should stop buying cars purely on active safety features, because in most cases they don't work and they just beep at you. So for that reason, I would say really think when you're buying these cars, do I need all the active safety features or do I just need to learn how to drive? In terms of engines, first place goes to the Suzuki Swift, thanks to its 1 litre 3-cylinder engine. And when you pair it with the 6-speed auto and the pedal shifters, it's a lot of fun to drive, has a lot more torque than these other 2 engines for around town, and gets really good fuel consumption. You compare that to the Mazda, it has a little bit more power. It was also paired with a 6-speed auto, but it doesn't have pedals, and without that turbo, it really lacks torque. You compare that to the Jazz, this has a similar 1.5 with a little bit more power again, 89 kilowatt, and it's paired with the CVT, and a lot of people go, oh no, CVT, don't like that. But honestly, it's really, really good in this car. And while it gets the worst fuel consumption, about 5.8 litres per 100k, it's still a lot of fun to drive, probably on level playing field with the Mazda there. Righty chaps, now comes the age-old question, which of these small hatchbacks is the fastest? Wow, the Jazz had the launch for certain, but from there they were pretty even, man. Now it's time for a rolling race to see which of the cars is fastest when you put your foot down. Go. Wow, they are like literally exactly the same speed. When driving the Suzuki, you can tell that all they wanted to do with this car was make it fun. It's got a really sporty steering wheel, and when it's paired with a 3-cylinder turbo engine, it sounds fantastic for one. And I love the darty steering. It's really zippy to turn into corners and so on. And the transmission performance is pretty good. It rev matches downshifts. All you have to do is just pull the pedal, give it some beans. And it's a lot of fun to wind out. Driving the new Jazz Life, is it fun? Yes, the handling is fantastic. The way it just zips through corners down here and stops and goes really, really well. It's a lot of fun. But if you want a car that feels like a luxury car to drive, this is it. And yet somehow it doesn't body roll too much. The steering is still zippy. The engine is still really responsive, especially for one paired with the CVT. But I just can't get over how comfortable these seats are and how, look at this, 50 k's an hour over speed hump. Barely even know. It's literally like many, many times more comfortable than the other two. It's amazing. And then when you pair that with it having the best interior for build quality and the best interior for practicality and the best infotainment system, this is a dang good car. The Mazda has by far and away the best transmission performance. It's the quickest to change. It locks up the torque converter. It rev matches downshifts even into first gear, and just generally feels a lot more responsive and better connected. The problem is it just doesn't make a whole lot of torque, and when you're just trying to pull away from a stop in like second, it just struggles between about 1,000 and 3,000 RPM. But the main thing I noticed getting in this, man, it rides hard compared with the Suzuki and the Honda, but especially the Honda. This thing rides really hard. So which should you buy? Well, most people who are looking at a small car probably also have a bigger family car to go alongside it. And in the case of the Suzuki and the Mazda, I would expect that to be the case. They don't have a great amount of boot space, the back seats aren't brilliant for taking adult passengers or putting child seats in, they ride pretty hard and don't have the most comfortable seats and are quite noisy on the open road, but they get excellent fuel consumption and have a lot of features for the money, like auto lights and wipers, adaptive cruise, and various other active safety features. And for that reason, they make great city cars. But the Honda is the car that I feel you could use every single day. It's got fantastic boot space, really amazingly comfortable seats, great ride quality, it's really quiet on the open road, has useful day-to-day features like a really high quality reversing camera with dynamic parking lines along with front and rear parking sensors is standard. Yes, for the money you miss out on quite a few of the active safety features, but in my mind the only two that are important is adaptive cruise and lane keep assist. And in the case of the Suzuki and the Mazda, the lane keep assist is not centering, it just ping-pongs you off the line, which is a complete waste of time, and the adaptive cruise doesn't work at low speed in traffic. It's only good for the open road where they are more noisy and less comfortable and so on. And for that reason, I'd be spending my money on the Honda. But if you want a more fun city car that's going to get better fuel consumption, get the Suzuki. And if you want a better built Suzuki, get the Mazda. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.